So I wanted to talk today about the process of finding beta readers for your novel or your book that you've written. And I wanted to post this as a follow-up video to my last video where I talked about my journey towards becoming an author who hasn't published a book yet, but it's coming. And I really hope that anyone who was a beta reader of either my dystopian novel that I wrote in college or my most recent book, I really hope that none of you felt discounted or like I didn't appreciate the time that you put in to either reading or giving me, like some people gave me line by line edits. God bless my sweet mother I can't even imagine how much time she spent between all of my books because she's always my first beta reader. If you're a writer, having beta readers is such an important part of the process. You really want to find at least 3 beta readers before you go into your final rounds of edits and before you even consider publishing either traditionally or self-publishing. I think for my book, just so you guys know, for my business book, I'm going to be self-publishing. And to any aspiring writer or author, know that the process of getting beta readers is challenging. It's difficult, both for you, but also for your beta readers as well. When you're choosing a beta reader, I would find someone who regularly reads in the niche that you've written in. So if you're writing a young adult novel, find people who read young adult novels often. If you're writing a business book, find people who read business books. The more you can separate yourself from your work, the more effective you will be as a writer and the more successful you will be. This is a learning experience for both you and your beta reader. So don't be too hard on them and don't be too hard on yourself. If they don't make it through your book, don't take that too personally and just ask them, be like, hey, no sweat at all. Where do you think that it kind of fell flat? Because that's really great feedback for me to have. I want to go back and I want to, make that part better. I think I read some crazy stat, and I don't know what it is, that like a huge majority of people are not going to make it all the way through the book. So to put, for business and self-help in particular, they said put your best stuff in the first third of the book. But that just goes to show you that don't feel bad if people don't make it all the way through your book. Try to really find out what it was that stopped them from continuing on. And then just let them know how much you appreciate them for giving you whatever level of detail of feedback that they're willing to give you. Whether it's overarching story, like holes, or maybe just areas for improvement, or whether it's line by line edits, or just, hey, here's where I got stuck. And don't take it personally. Which this is something that I still struggle with. This is something I still have to remind myself all the time. But when someone gives you feedback on your work, you are not your work. So if they don't like something, it does not mean they don't like you as a person. It does not mean they're not proud of you and they don't admire you for writing this book, because it's a huge accomplishment. It is a huge accomplishment to face a blank sheet of paper and get your book down and get it into someone else's hands. And you should feel proud of that regardless of whether or not you publish that book. I would say I probably had at least 8, maybe more initially for my dystopian novel. I gave them to friends and family members, and I got a variety of feedback from people. So some read the whole book, Mom, and a few other family members and friends gave me detailed feedback on the overall story and some even line by line edits. And I just got the books back and I was so grateful. I almost felt bad that they had put that much time in. I felt a little bad that I had asked that of people. And then I felt extremely overwhelmed. And I went through all the comments, and then of course I started submitting. I made changes and I did lots of edits, and then I started submitting to literary agents and getting rejections back, and just honestly feeling like a failure and feeling embarrassed about the whole situation, and just kind of wanted to put it on the back burner and forget that it ever happened. And honestly, me telling you guys that, this is why I haven't talked about my dystopian novel very much, because I feel a lot of embarrassment and almost guilt that I had had so many people invest so much time in editing, reading, providing feedback, and then I didn't have the guts to move forward with it and make it happen. And you know what? That's okay. As I film this video right now, I'm giving myself permission to release that shame, that guilt, that embarrassment around that whole experience. And I hope that if you're a writer who has been through a beta reading experience or is about to go through one, I hope that you will release yourself from that shame, that guilt, and that fear, because everything happens for a reason and everything happens in the time that it is meant to happen. You just have to trust that as a writer. And however far you get in your writing journey with this novel or whatever novel you're on, that's where you're meant to get. But don't give up. Keep writing. You may have to write 3 or 5 or 10 books before one takes off. And none of those are failures. None of those are failures, whether you get them to the publisher, whether you self-publish them, or whether you don't make it there. That's not a failure. You will learn something and you will be better for it, and you will grow as a writer. So just go easy on yourself. That's the best advice I can give you as a writer, is to go easy on yourself. It is such a difficult journey to get yourself to sit down and write. In the book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, he literally talks about how it was easier for Hitler to start World War II than it was for him to face a blank canvas. Literally, the creative journey was more challenging, was more of an internal battle for him than starting World War II. And there are more details in that book about it, but that just goes to show you that you are so incredibly brave for pursuing writing, for pursuing any creative journey. You are so incredibly brave for that. And you should be proud of yourself, and you need to go easy on yourself because it is not easy. Just because I gave up on my first book does not mean that you should give up on your book. Do not give up on your book just because you need help with the world building or the pacing is off or whatever other feedback your beta readers give you. I wish that I had proceeded with fleshing out all the issues that the beta readers had pointed out and published my book, whether it was traditionally or self-publishing. But I didn't, and I'm definitely not saying to follow in my footsteps, but I just wanted to be honest with you guys about what my journey has been and what I went through. And I just have to kind of embrace it for what it was, because I learned a lot in the process and I grew a lot as a writer. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Jackie, Molly, and Ellie. Thank you, Gail. And thank you to every other friend or family member who offered to be a beta reader for my book. It means so much to me that I have that many people in my life who would be willing to do that, because I know that's a big ask. And no matter how far you got in my book, whether you got all the way through and gave me detailed feedback or you just made it as far as you could, I appreciate you guys and I really am grateful.